Hello and welcome to today's content, which will be based on Louelle and doing the unit analysis on her and giving her a rating out of 5 instead of 10 this time. I'll be changing it to 5 in general because I do believe 10 is a bit of an over-exaggerated number in terms of rating in general, so I shortened it down a bit. Additionally, if people want, I can actually do these unit analyses a little bit earlier, but it will have the Japanese translation, so depending on what people would want more, like, would you wait until I release the English translation version of it, or I can do it earlier in the day, like even on the Monday, and do her unit analysis on, I believe, the Japanese translation. I can do that as well, so it depends on what people would want. It's just more easier and more understandable when doing it from the English translation in general. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin. Here we are for the main job takeaways, which is going to be the new first class that we get in Global. It's going to be the Scholar. So from here, the base unit is going to have Magic Orb. As you can see, there's a little bit of damage, has good range. The EX ability, however, changes it so that it does not have a cast time anymore, and it lowers the AP of the enemy that it hits. So that's pretty nice to have. After that, she gets a self buff for her, which is going to be a lot of preservation. It increases her defense for 3 turns up to 15, and increases her defense debuff resistance by 100% for 3 turns for herself. This means you cannot defense debuff her. You can, however, pierce through it or penetrate it, so keep that in mind. After that, we have Earthen Calling, where it increases her Earth attack, the evocation gauge boost, and increases the single target resistance for 3 turns, all for allies. If she gets her EX buff from this, or the upgrade from it, she loses the cast time on this, so it's instant. She also gets a lot more Earth attack bonus as well. It's going to be very good for her allies for damage, as well as the single target resistance and the summon gauge if you use that often. After that, we have her first unique strike type magic damage. It's going to be the Law of Geo Absorption, where it's going to do a lot of damage, and as you can see, it is a very big AoE, and it absorbs 30% of the damage done. This is going to be very nice because not a lot of units have strike resistance, and even if they do, this targets the spirit or the magic defense situation, so she can deal very good damage with this. After that, we have Devitalizing Glint, where it's going to decrease healing power up to 40 for 3 turns for a target, as you can see from there on the range. When she upgrades this with a passive, not her EX, with a passive, it loses the cast time, so it's going to be very nice if you use it specifically for that. After that, her EX ability is going to be Evocation of Free Action, where it's going to increase your agility by 20% for yourself and your allies, and restore 15 AP for your allies as well. This is not bad. I'm not going to say it's good because AP 15 is nice to have. However, as you can see, the area of effect is a little bit smaller. It's going to be kind of precise on the AI timing, as well as that means your agility is going to be good because having agility for your teammates is very nice to have. It's kind of like a speed force from a Phoebe. This is more going to be quote-unquote useful in terms of like free or live PvP more than auto. It definitely helps a little bit with the AP in general, but on auto it won't do as much. Like, you won't have as much situational uses for this on the average. After that, we have our Limit Break, which is Gift of Knowledge, where she has the Spirit Penetration for herself up to 40% for 3 turns, and it does a good amount of damage. As you can see from the AoE and the range of it, it's a little bit smaller, but I mean, it's not too bad. As long as you can get the Spirit Penetration out, this is very nice to have. Here we are for the sub-job takeaways. For Scholar sub-job, she's going to get Law of Speed Reading and Law of Disarmament. As you can see, they are a bit niche, but it's not bad. Ironically, Law of Speed Reading is kind of funny because while it does restore your CT to give you another turn kind of quickly, not instantly, and it lowers her, decreased her activation time for her casting abilities, by giving yourself another turn quickly means you're going to be using your turns for the buff itself. But, I mean, if it's there, it's not bad, if you do have the usage of it. After that, Law of Disarmament is going to be kind of like a attack break, but it is a single target, however, so it's not going to be too important. I would recommend actually not using her Scholar subjob in general. From here, we move on to the Rune Knight subjob, where she gets Drain Evocation, Stone Blade, Hazard Spell, Stonaga Blade. This is what I would consider using on her, mostly because she's able to give her self a buff with the Hazard Spell if you want more magic damage and you have enough modifiers. Or it's also because you gain access to slash type magic damage, which is nice to have, especially with if people are stacking too many like defenses in terms of strike resistance and magic resistance, she does have access to a third one, which is Slash. From here, we also have Black Mage Subjob, where if you want to let her kind of flex into non-elemental magic, pretend there's too many like lightning units out on the field, and not lightning, sorry, too many wind units on the field, but you still want her to like use her magic and not be mitigated by element, then Flare would be her strongest ability here because it hits very, very hard, as well as being non-element, there is less damage mitigation for the element there. Here we are for the resistances and the passives. For resistances to the damage types, this is without her master ability. Keep in mind, I will explain in a little bit, but yeah, this is without her master ability. At her base values, she is at 10% slash, 5% pierce, negative 10% strike, 10% to missile, and 0% to magic. She has 0% AoE, 0% single target resistance. At level 120, with her master ability included, she has a base of 6 defense and 0 spirit. Her resistances to her statuses is going to be 50% to blind, 50% to disable. 50% to disable being very, very good. She also has a 10% resistance to confusion, and her master ability is going to be the earth mono ability for her teammates and herself, as well as a slash and missile resistance by 10% for herself. This means slash turns into 20% now, and her missile turns into 20% as well. So this is going to be very nice to have in terms of tanking most physical matchups. She has a move of 3, jump 1. She unfortunately does not have anything to increase those without outside resources, and she has a cost 80 unit. For her passives, for her recommended, she actually has a lot of really good ones, but yeah, here are a few of them. Scholarly Infusion is going to be, Intuition, sorry. Scholarly Intuition is very good because it has the 12th defense and gives herself accuracy. Because she doesn't have any 100% hit abilities, having accuracy in general is nice. And she has 6 base defense already. With the defense up, that means she can get up to 18 base defense. And considering that she has an ability that prevents defense being imperiled, this is very important to think about. From here, when we were talking about the delinting, I forgot what it was called, but it's the glint ability magic spell. I said the vitalizing glint. There it is. With knowledge reserves, she upgrades the vitalizing glint, so it loses its cast time, and she also decreases her own cast time in general, so she can get abilities out faster. From here, she also has access to Sharp Mind, something I would highly recommend making sure she is using because it increases your spirit penetration by 40% and gives her accuracy of 20. This is very, very nice to have. She also has a Magic Up ability from like the Black Mage Subjob. Magic Up is going to be good considering that she already has like a decently good magic stat. Increasing it even further makes it very hard to mitigate damage against her. Just keep in mind that you will be giving up one of the either defensive or spirit penetration passives. For her niche and flex passives, I specifically put Earth Enhancing Rune here because obviously I can't put nothing. You don't want to necessarily decrease your survivability in general, like the decreasing the wind resistance, especially with Louelle, because she does not really have any barriers or any like protection against certain abilities. So I put it here specifically because it's not really too recommended. And she also has her own buff ability that can increase her earth attack, and then you would be stacking modifiers. Obviously, it could be useful, but at the same time, I would rather use the other benefits on the other passives. For her reaction abilities, she's gonna get Reactive Force, which is kind of like a... She does damage back with magic damage. It's kind of like magic counter, literally, but it has a little bit higher percent chance of proccing. I would recommend using actually Magic Commutation because if she takes damage, she's able to restore her own AP for a little bit. It's kind of like an auto refresh. The reason why is that she actually does not have as high of an AP, like max AP, compared to like other mages. So having AP like accessibility is going to be kind of important considering she does not have like very, very high AP compared to other magic casters. So here is Louelle's rating out of 5. Not 10 anymore, 5. Because putting 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 is like kind of similar to just being basically almost 10 out of 10 in general, just in terms of number abilities. So I toned it down a little bit so it's easier to understand. So for at release, I gave her specifically a 4 out of 5 because she's capable of 80% spirit penetration and a base of 40% with her passive. This is very nice to have considering if people are going to be using Plat Helms or using magic tanks such as specifically Rain. And in the future, we have Charlotte coming, who is also has very high magic, magic mitigation. Having a lot of spirit penetration is going to help immensely. Outside of that, Louelle also has good HP, especially for a mage. She has very high HP for a mage, but in general she has good HP. She has a good magic stat. She has a decent agility. It's not bad, but it's not like super good either. She has a base of 6 defense and 0 spirit. She's capable of high magic damage abilities. They're mostly only in her AoE form. Unfortunately, she does not have any strong single target abilities that can hit as hard. She's able to flex up to 3 attack types, as I said earlier. It's going to be magic, slash, and uniquely, until we see it on another unit, she has the magic stat strike type attack damage. What that means is that it does strike attack type, but it hits your spirit instead of your defense. So yeah. She's able to provide, well, not provide, but she's able to lower the enemy AP and lower healing power down, so it's going to be very nice to have in general. She has decent resistances around, with 20 slash and 20 missile being actually pretty good against most physical enemies in general. She does have no 100% hit ability, but she does have an accuracy up passive. She has 2 of them, in fact. She has 3 move, 1 jump, and it means it's going to be a little bit harder for her to position attacks in general. However, she does have high range to compensate, as well as she has a good amount of AoE, so she won't have too much of an issue trying to hit enemies. She has a decent AP cost on abilities, but she does not have as high AP cost, like AP, like to use compared to like other mages like Yuna. I believe like at level 120 without an Esper or anything, just clean base, she gets about 100 AP, which is nice to have. However, her AP costs are not like very forgiving if she doesn't deal enough damage. For the future and longevity, unfortunately, I had to give her a 3.5 out of 5. Sorry. 3.5 out of 5. The reason why is that currently we know that Earth as an element is going to be lacking a majority of their EXs. Like, we recently saw that Japan got ketones over there, but we're still missing, even on the global side, we're still missing Summer Lilith. We don't have Halloween Ryus yet. We don't have Killfies yet. We don't have even Winter Veneras yet. Ironically, we don't have hers yet still. But yeah, there's so many Earth elements right now that are kind of like waiting to be revived. So for now, her future isn't looking like the best as of right now. She is, however, able to get a high base defense, but she does lack a barrier, and she has nothing to mitigate magic damage outside without some mitigation. So basically, defense penetration units in general will be very good against her. I just have to say 2B and Tifa, just saying, there's a lot of defense penetration there, and they're wind types. But in terms of magic damage, she has nothing in terms of survivability there without, like, you have to put like a smart robe on her or something, or have someone else give her a magic barrier. She just does not have those innately on her. Her kit is kind of mixed in that she's able to help her team a little bit, but all of them don't feel like it's super great or like amazing. But she can also debuff enemies a little bit, so it's kind of like she's a bit too much of a jack of trades on what her kit does outside of dealing her damage. So it's like kind of an issue, kind of like Ramza, where Ramza has shout, he has magic resistance, but he doesn't have too much outside of that. Like, it's kind of like Louelle, where she's gonna have she can restore a little bit AP and agility to her teammates, but she can also like lower the enemy teammates AP, but like it just doesn't feel like enough, especially if they have bells or like they're a mage. The AP issue is not going to be too big. She does have a little bit other buffs, such as like the single target like for her allies, but it's only at 15%. It's not at least like 20 or 25, so it's just so-so. In general, it's just everything so-so. Because she has no 100% hit abilities, also, this still hurts against evasion. She does have access to 2 accuracy passes, but you are giving up a significant amount of other utility by using both accuracy passives. Because she is focused almost entirely on AoE abilities, that means while she can hit many enemies and get a lot of chip damage in, she struggles in terms of single target magics, where if someone stacks up a lot of AoE resistance, she can't actually deal as much damage as she could be. She's also actually very hard to mitigate damage against, because she has 3 attack types, like possible attack types, and she has high spirit penetration. She's actually very good and relevant in terms of DPS for a while. She does, however, have a lot of cast time on most of her abilities without her upgrades or EX. Even with those, she still has a few cast times on certain abilities, so it's something to think about, that she can be cancelled with like a jamming thrust or something. She is resistant to disable, which is very, very good. However, she is still possible to be silenced, which can make her useless for a few turns because silence onto mages is pretty much disabling them pretty much for 3 turns. It's almost the same concept. For her TMR chase rating, it is the Sage's Barrette. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I colored it blue. The reason why I colored it blue is that it's a bit niche in what it provides. The Wish for Peace is very nice in that it provides 35% luck to your allies for 3 turns, and it can nullify blind and stop. This is more gonna be for class match or live PvP specifically, and it does not really have too much usage outside of it because luck stat in general is mostly for evasion as well as accuracy. But there are very few niche reasons for this, especially with 100% hit abilities being out there. It feels too niche to give it a good rating. As well as the stats itself, 434 HP is not bad. It is an armor slot, however, so that means you cannot use other armors. And it has 8 defense and 10 critical avoid. So as you can see, the stats are also kind of just mediocre at best. And yeah, that's why. Overall, the rating of the TMR is 3 out of 5. So here we are for stuff that can work with Louelle. Obviously, you know, if you have UR Mont and all that, like you can use it with any EX units, but here are the Earth units that you can possibly pair her up with in the future. And I specifically put this because I don't want to like put the same stuff every time. It's gonna be like UR Mont, you know, it's gonna be Yuna, all that. But I'll explain a little bit why for these characters specifically. Once Winter Venera gets her EX, she's actually going to benefit a lot with pairing up with Louelle because they're both Earth and they kind of cover each other's weaknesses. Louelle is kind of weak to magic in general because she has no innate mitigation. Venera is very strong against them. However, Venera is also kind of weak to most matchups in physical areas. She does have a little bit of slash resistance, but not too much in terms of her other ones. But she can get covered by basically Louelle because she has defense up and she is very good into most physical damaging attackers, so it's kind of like they complement each other very well. Halloween Ryu does not have his EX yet. However, once he does, he can definitely be very good. Even now I think he's actually not bad. It's just that too many people are running 2B right now, and in the future it's gonna be Tifa. So he's gonna lose a little bit of his usage, but he definitely has potential because he does have guts and / immortal spirit. It's just too useful to have, and he does hit still very hard. Outside of that, we know from Japan, Katone has been doing insanely well in terms of evasion and live PvP. I do believe they can help each other very well because Louelle can increase her HP further, so that means Katone can use better she can get advantages on Drain Force builds even more with her larger HP percent by stacking up all the mono earth. Lastly, we have Kilfi. Kilfi lately, out of like the current meta and in general, especially with the EX out, she just cannot deal enough damage, she cannot survive long enough, and she's a little bit too much spread out on her usage. She's just not good enough now. However, we don't know if her EX will possibly make her like a monster again, like in the beginning when everyone was going evasion with Venera and she just one-shots hit with Holy. Like, good job, Kilfi. As of right now, we don't know until then, so I put her up as a question mark until we can see what she potentially gets. For TMRs, we have the Peacetime Brooch, which is going to increase magic stat in general as well as magic penetration. This allows Louelle to use her hardest hitting magic attack abilities. We also have the Magical String, which is going to increase her magic damage in general from anything, including her strike magic attack type damage ability, like her magic ability spells. Sorry, it's just kind of hard to say without trying to repeat, but yeah, outside of that, it increases her damage pretty well. She should also use Soul of Thasma if you do have that available, mostly because it gives her a little bit of magic resistance as well as giving her more magic stat, and it gives a little bit of resistance to silence, which is nice. A lot of people are not actually using silence in general, such as like Hollowed Bolt and stuff, but the moment Final Fantasy Tactics returns and those units get their EXs again, you're definitely going to see it more often. In the future, maybe more units might have silence like abilities, so it's something to consider. Outside of that, her biggest and best magic mitigation, taking magic damage, is going to be the Smart Coat, especially the barrier type. She will need this if you're going to be fighting magic attack type users in general. And we arrived to the end of the video. As always, if you like my unit analysis video, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next video, peace out, guys.